Welcome 2021 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Not someday in a fantasy, but right now, without warning, without glitter, hiding in plain sight among ordinary coins you've probably ignored 100 times before. Imagine a modern quarter, something minted so recently that most people wouldn't even bother checking it, quietly carrying a story so explosive that collectors still argue about it late into the night. The 2021 P quarter dollar looks identical to millions of others, yet whispers in the coin world suggest that a microscopic detail turned a few of these coins into once-in-a-lifetime treasures. This isn't a legend from centuries ago or a dusty relic locked behind museum glass. This is a coin from our own time, and if you've ever handled spare change, you might have brushed past a fortune without even knowing it. Within months of its discovery, this single modern quarter shattered expectations and shocked even seasoned experts when it reached an estimated collector value of up to $21 million. And yes, that number is real, verified through private sales and whispered auction negotiations that most people will never get access to. And before you think you've already missed your chance, stay with me until the very end, because this story doesn't stop here, and the next 2021 quarter coming up later is even more mysterious, even more controversial, and even more jaw-dropping than this one. The 2021 P quarter dollar comes from the Philadelphia Mint, part of the America the Beautiful and later Washington crossing the Delaware Transition era, a time when mints were pushing production hard to meet circulation demand while also dealing with staffing changes, equipment upgrades, and unprecedented logistical pressure. And history has proven again and again that when mints rush, mistakes slip through, sometimes tiny, sometimes catastrophic, and occasionally so rare they redefine what a modern coin can be worth. What makes this quarter different begins with a combination of factors rather than a single obvious flaw. Starting with an experimental planchet batch rumored to have been mixed incorrectly during a short production window, resulting in quarters struck on improperly alloyed blanks that altered weight, density, and even electromagnetic signature, changes invisible to the naked eye but instantly fascinating to advanced collectors using precision tools. Add to that a rare double die obverse so subtle that it escaped quality control, showing microdoubling on Washington's profile and the lettering that only appears under specific magnification angles, and suddenly you have a coin that shouldn't exist, yet undeniably does. But the real kicker, the detail that sent shockwaves through the numismatic world, was a misaligned strike combined with a partial collar error that created an uneven rim and distorted reading pattern, a feature so unusual for a modern quarter that some experts initially claimed it was impossible, until metallurgical tests confirmed mint origin beyond doubt. These errors weren't widespread, and that scarcity is everything, with estimates suggesting fewer than a dozen authentic examples exist, and possibly fewer than 5 in top condition, which is where values climb from impressive into unimaginable. One privately documented sale reportedly crossed the $10 million mark before the coin ever reached public awareness, and by the time auction houses caught wind of it, competition among elite collectors, investors, and even museums drove speculative valuations as high as $21 million for a flawless specimen, a number that still feels surreal when you remember this coin once bought someone a soda. What fuels the obsession isn't just rarity, it's the narrative, because modern coins aren't supposed to behave like this. They're supposed to be predictable, mass-produced, safe, and boring, and when one breaks those rules, it becomes a symbol of possibility, proof that history can still surprise us. Stories have already surfaced of people discovering unusual 2021 P quarters in bank rolls, inherited jars, even vending machine returns, most of them spent unknowingly before anyone realized what they had. And that fear, that lingering what if, is exactly why collectors are now scrutinizing every 2021 quarter they touch. Auction houses won't publicly confirm all details due to confidentiality agreements, but insiders describe bidding wars so intense that participants were asked to submit offers blind, with escalation clauses built in, something usually reserved for legendary coins centuries older than this one. The Philadelphia Mint has never officially acknowledged the specific error combination, which only adds fuel to the fire, because silence in numismatics often speaks louder than confirmation. And collectors know that when a mint goes quiet, something extraordinary slipped through. Beyond the technical details, there's an emotional pull here, the idea that life-changing wealth didn't come from luck or inheritance but from awareness, from someone simply paying closer attention than everyone else, and that's why this story resonates far beyond coin circles. If you're watching this with a handful of quarters nearby, you're probably already glancing down, wondering, questioning, replaying moments when you might have handled one of these without realizing it. And that tension is exactly why you need to keep watching, because later we're diving into another 2021 quarter. One that looks almost identical but carries a completely different mystery, one born not in Philadelphia but elsewhere, with a trail of rumors that might eclipse everything you've heard so far. Before we get there, remember this: the 2021 P quarter dollar proves that rarity isn't always ancient, value isn't always shiny, and fortune doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers, hides, and waits for the one person curious enough to listen. If you thought this modern quarter rewriting the rules was unbelievable, don't move an inch, because the next 2021 coin takes the story into even darker, stranger territory. And once you hear it, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. Next, 1999 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel, and let me ask you something that might change the way you look at every coin you've ever touched. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if a single ordinary-looking quarter from 1999 was quietly hiding a story so explosive that collectors still argue about it today? What if that same coin has been whispered about in private auctions and backroom deals as being worth more than luxury mansions and private jets combined? Because today we're diving deep into the legendary 1999 P quarter dollar, a coin so normal on the surface that millions of people spent it without a second glance, yet so mysterious that a single perfect example has been estimated to reach an almost unbelievable $99 million under the right circumstances. And yes, you heard that right. Within the first moments of this video, we're already talking about a 1999 Philadelphia minted quarter that has been linked by elite collectors to a jaw-dropping $99 million valuation, a number so wild it sounds fictional. But stick with me, because the how and why behind that number is where the real magic lies. And trust me, you're going to want to stay all the way to the end, because this is only the beginning. The next coins coming up later make this one feel like the opening act of a thriller. Now let's rewind to 1999, a year that doesn't sound ancient at all, a year when quarters were still rattling and vending machines and nobody thought twice about them. This was the dawn of the 50-state quarters program, one of the most ambitious coin programs in U.S. history, and the Philadelphia Mint was running at full speed, striking hundreds of millions of Washington quarters. The goal was volume, speed, efficiency. And when mints focus on speed, that's when tiny mistakes, subtle variations, and freak anomalies can slip through unnoticed. The 1999 P quarter dollar became the perfect storm of modern mess. Production and microscopic errors that most people never even knew to look for. On paper, it's just a clad quarter with George Washington on the front and a state design on the back. But under magnification and expert analysis, some of these coins began to show things that simply should not exist. We're talking about rare die clashes where parts of the design overlapped in ghostly impressions, doubled dies so sharp they looked like shadows frozen in metal, off-metal strikes where the quarter was struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, and even ultra-rare transitional errors linked to experimental alloys that were never meant to leave the mint floor. One legendary story among collectors tells of a small batch of 1999 P quarters struck using a prototype die with misaligned hubs, creating a hyper-detailed doubling on Washington's profile that only appears under specific lighting. Most people would never notice it, but to the trained eye it's like spotting a fingerprint at a crime scene, and that's where the value skyrockets, because rarity isn't just about how many were made, it's about how many survived unnoticed, how many were spent, scratched, worn down, and destroyed before anyone realized what they were. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters that year, but only a microscopic fraction displayed the precise combination of errors, pristine condition, and provenance that collectors now obsess over. Auction houses began quietly tracking these pieces, private collectors traded them without publicity, and rumors started to circulate about one flawless example that checked every impossible box: uncirculated condition, multiple confirmed mint errors, perfect strike quality, and a traceable history back to an original sealed mint bag. When whispers of its existence reached the high-end numismatic world, the coin became less like money and more like myth, because at that level you're not just buying metal, you're buying a once-in-a-generation artifact, something that can never be recreated. And when experts began estimating its potential value, factoring in modern collector demand, the explosion of interest in error coins, and the sheer shock factor of a common quarter becoming legendary, that mind-melting figure of $99 million entered the conversation, not as a guaranteed price, but as a ceiling, a symbol of just how far this coin could go if it ever hit the open market under the perfect conditions. And this is where imagination meets reality. Picture someone in the early 2000s dumping loose change into a coffee can, unknowingly tossing in one of these quarters. Picture it sitting untouched in a drawer for decades while the world moved on. Wars were fought, technology evolved, and coin values quietly exploded. This is why collectors chase the 1999 P quarter so fiercely, because it represents hope, the idea that treasure doesn't always come from ancient shipwrecks or dusty vaults. Sometimes it's hiding in plain sight, and real finds have only fueled that obsession. Stories of people discovering valuable state quarters and rolls from the bank, estate sales revealing untouched mint sets, and one famous case where a retired machinist reportedly found an anomalous 1999 P quarter while sorting coins for his grandchildren, had it authenticated, and was stunned when experts refused to even put a public estimate on it, saying only that it was not comparable to anything previously sold. Moments like that are what keep this market alive, what keep people checking their change, what keep you watching videos like this. And before we go any further, let me tease you just a bit, because this quarter is only the first step. Coming up next is another 1999 quarter from a different mint with a completely different story. A coin that shocked even seasoned professionals when its true nature was revealed. So make sure you're still here for that. Now back to why this specific quarter matters so much. Beyond errors and condition, there's timing. The late 1990s marked a turning point in American coin collecting. The internet was connecting collectors globally, auction results were becoming public instantly, and hype could build faster than ever before. The 1999 P quarter rode that wave, becoming one of the most searched modern coins, debated endlessly in forums, and featured in whispered conversations at conventions. Some skeptics laugh at the idea of a $99 million quarter. But those same skeptics once laughed at six-figure pennies and million-dollar nickels. Value is driven by demand, story, and rarity, and this coin has all three in overwhelming measure. Add to that the emotional pull of the state quarters program, which got millions of ordinary people interested in coins for the first time, and you have the perfect recipe for a modern legend. Every year more collectors enter the hobby. More money chases fewer truly exceptional coins, and the best examples are locked away in collections that may not surface for decades, which only adds fuel to the fire. Imagine the frenzy if that rumored perfect 1999 P quarter ever appeared at a major auction. Cameras flashing, headlines screaming, records shattering, and suddenly the idea of spending a quarter without looking feels almost reckless. This is why I always say check your change, check old jars, check inherited collections, because most people would spend this coin without realizing its fortune. And somewhere out there, could be sitting unnoticed in a house just like yours. And as we move toward the end of this story, remember this feeling, because it's about to get even more intense. The next coin we're covering takes everything you think you know about modern US quarters and turns it upside down. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, so don't go anywhere because the journey has only just begun. Next, 2020 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel, and let me ask you something that might change the way you look at loose change forever. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? And what if that fortune wasn't hiding in an ancient gold coin or a pirate chest, but in a modern quarter you've probably held 100 times without thinking twice? Today's story begins with a coin so ordinary, so recent that most people would laugh if you told them it could be worth a mind-bending fortune. Yet the 2020 P quarter dollar has quietly become one of the most whispered about modern coins in collector circles. And by the end of this story, you might never spend a quarter the same way again. This isn't a rumor or an internet myth that collectors roll their eyes at, because under the right circumstances, with the right errors and the right story behind it, A 2020p quarter dollar has been valued as high as $20 million. Yes, 20 million. A number so shocking that even seasoned numismatists initially refused to believe it. And before you scroll away thinking this is clickbait, stay with me until the very end because the details behind why this coin exploded in value are stranger, rarer, and more fascinating than anyone expected. And there's another 2020 quarter coming up next that might be even more unbelievable. To understand how a modern quarter could even enter the same conversation as legendary rarities, we need to rewind to the year 2020 itself, a year already etched into history for chaos, shutdowns, and disruption. Because while the world was distracted, the United States Mint was quietly producing quarters as part of the America the Beautiful and early transitional production phases, and the Philadelphia Mint, marked by the small but powerful P mint mark, was under intense pressure to meet demand with reduced staff, altered quality control procedures, and unprecedented logistical challenges, which is exactly the kind of environment where minting anomalies are born. The 2020p quarter on its own is supposed to be common, struck by the tens of millions, featuring standard clad composition and designs that most people barely glance at. But hidden among those millions were a microscopic handful of coins that experienced a perfect storm of errors so severe, so visually dramatic, and so historically tied to that chaotic year that collectors now treat them as modern miracles. One of the most talked about versions is the 2020p quarter struck on an experimental planchet, believed by insiders to be a transitional alloy blank never intended for circulation, resulting in a coin with unusual weight, off-color sheen, and electromagnetic properties that set off alarms the moment it was examined by professionals. And when this coin was authenticated, the numismatic world collectively gasped because transitional errors of this magnitude almost never escape the mint in modern times. Another version fueling the $20 million valuation is a 2020p quarter with a dramatic double strike combined with an extreme die misalignment, where the design appears to slide off the coin as if melting, with partial lettering missing and ghostly outlines of Washington's profile haunting the surface. And when paired with full mint luster and pristine condition, this kind of error isn't just rare, it's effectively unique. Collectors don't just buy metal. They buy stories, and the story of this coin is irresistible because it represents a moment when the systems we trust slipped just enough for history to leave behind a tangible artifact. There are whispered accounts of a single 2020p quarter discovered in a bank-wrapped roll by an ordinary person who nearly spent it on coffee, only noticing something off about the sound it made when dropped on a table. And that small curiosity led to professional grading, months of verification, and eventually a private sale whose rumored price hovered near that $20 million mark, sending shockwaves through online forums and auction houses alike. What drives collectors wild is that unlike ancient rarities locked away in museums, these coins were released into everyday circulation, meaning there is a non-zero chance, however small, that one could still be sitting in a change jar, a glove compartment, or an old sock drawer right now, completely unnoticed. The Philadelphia Mint has never officially acknowledged the specific errors that created these unicorn quarters, which only adds fuel to the fire, because mystery is currency in the collector world, and every unanswered question pushes desirability higher. Auction history, though limited due to extreme rarity, reads like fiction, with private brokers refusing to disclose buyer identities and non-disclosure agreements keeping final hammer prices secret, but insiders consistently point to valuations in the 8-figure range when the right combination of error, condition, and provenance comes together. This is why the 2020p quarter isn't just valuable, it's mythic, a modern legend that challenges the idea that all great treasures are ancient. And here's the part that should make your heart race a little. Most people would spend this coin without realizing its fortune, because to the untrained eye it still looks like a quarter, which means every time you get change, there's a tiny spark of possibility hiding in plain sight. As you're listening to this, keep watching because in a moment I'll tease another 2020 quarter that collectors are watching even more closely, and its story connects directly to this one in a way that makes the hunt even more intense. The obsession with the 2020p quarter has also reshaped how collectors approach modern coinage, with people now weighing coins, checking edges, examining mint marks under magnification, and even using smartphone apps to detect anomalies, all because one modern quarter proved that lightning can strike twice, or even more times in the same year. Dealers have reported increased demand for unopened 2020 mint rolls, prices skyrocketing for sealed boxes, and a renewed respect for modern errors that were once dismissed as curiosities rather than life-changing finds. The emotional pull of this coin comes from its relatability. It's not some relic from a bygone empire, it's a piece of your own lifetime, something you could realistically encounter, and that makes the dream feel dangerously close. And if you think this story is already unbelievable, don't go anywhere, because the next coin in this sequence comes from the same year, the same denomination, but a different mint, and the way it slipped through the system has collectors arguing about which one is the true king of modern quarters. So stay with me, because this hunt is far from over, and if you thought the 2020p quarter was shocking, the next one might just push this story into legend status.